Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to VUX World, the Practical Voice Podcast. This week's episode of VUX World is brought to you by Botmock. Check out Botmock if you're looking for something to prototype and test your voice designs in, then look no further than Botmock. It's got a really clean UI, it's easy to use, it's simple to get on with. You can color code all the various different elements of your design, so navigating through your design is easy. I mean, that can get quite complex if you've got really complex designs, if you've got a big, massive, long interactive story. Being able to navigate around that and get from one point to another is really important, and Botmock lets you do that really, really well. Also, from a creative standpoint, nobody just creates stuff in isolation and then just launches something. You tend to have a team around you. You're going to have developers around you. You're going to have maybe a couple of user researchers around you. You're going to have maybe more designers around you, a product owner. So having a place where all of those people can come and share their thoughts and feedback and comment and iterate the design is absolutely invaluable. And that's exactly what you get with Botmock. So do check it out. Head to botmock.com/VUXworld. That's botmock.com/VUXworld for a free trial. Thank you, Botmock. Now, there's lots of interactive stories out there. There's lots of voice games out there that exist on Alexa and Google Home and all that kind of stuff. But this week we're talking about taking voice into other gaming environments, VR headsets, Xboxes, PlayStations, all of that kind of stuff. The traditional gaming environments where you typically use a joystick. We're talking about bringing voice into those environments to make things happen during the game in real time and to actually control objects and elements of the game with your voice. This episode is with Gordon Midwood of Anything World, anything.world if you want to go and check it out. Essentially, you can ask for anything and it will put that anything into your world, and then you can make that anything do stuff. So if you want a monkey waving a banana, then just ask for a monkey waving a banana and it'll just do that right there. So we're talking today really with Gordon about how he created Anything World, how do you go about designing it, how does all the technical side of things hang together behind the scenes, and also how can this be applied not just for the purposes of creating a standalone game, which Anything World have, but how can designers and game developers use this technology to implement voice control and voice behavior manipulation within their games themselves. This is an interesting episode and we cover stuff that we haven't covered yet on the podcast. Even if you're not a gamer, which I'm not myself, but you want to be looking for examples of where voice can be used in other environments and some of the design challenges and technical challenges that you face while trying to do that, this episode is for you. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gordon Midwood on VUX World.
VUX World. VUX World. VUX World. VUX World. Branding with the big faces. I love listening to it.
Kane Sims.
Kane Sims, the one and only.
Britain's finest, Mr. Kane Sims.
Dustin Coates.
I like it when you guys are together and talking about voice.
Without further ado, welcome to the show.
Gordon, welcome to VUX World.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Glad to have you here. I'm sure we won't. We've been trying to schedule this for a long time, so I'm glad we've made the stars align on this one.
Yeah. Well, that's Christmas and January for you.
It is. How are you doing, Dustin?
I'm doing quite all right. Really looking forward to this one, though. I have to be honest, I'm always a little worried when you bring on other English guests that your accents are just going to get stronger and stronger to the point where I can't understand you.
It's a good job he's not northern, because I think I've kept my accent because Gemma tends to pull me back on track if it veers during the day. But I think if I was speaking to another proper northerner, like another sort of like Teessider, then by the end of the episode it might be complete gibberish.
I understood most of what you guys just said. So we're good.
Classic. So, Gordon, we're going to chat about Anything World, and this is an absolutely fantastic piece of functionality tool. It's a platform. Well, how would you describe it anyway in the first instance? Describe it to us.
Sure. So Anything World is a platform that allows you to play with any object you can imagine using the power of your voice. That's the one-liner about it. Essentially what it is, it's a platform for developers to allow them to create voice experiences that combine open 3D libraries. So You can develop something using this. Let's say it's a game, and you can say add a tank. It will retrieve it, understand the intent of your language, say I want a really big tank, retrieve it from an open 3D library like Sketchfab or Poly, and then it will do a bunch of machine learning cleverness in engine, then add it into your game. So effectively, you can ask for whatever you like within the constraints of what's available, and it will appear within your game with behaviors applied. So it's kind of, the impetus behind it is, as I'm sure you guys are well aware, voice is a super exciting emerging area that's in everything from toilets to cars to microwaves. But it can be quite utility focused, can be quite boring. You know, do me this one task and that's it. We want to approach it in a more playful way. And we want to combine it with games and 3D libraries and intelligence to allow people to, you know, interact in a more joyous way with their surroundings using voice.
So how did you get to this point then? Let's, you know, give the listeners a little bit of context in terms of your kind of background and career and experience, etc. today. Where did you come from? You were at EA Sports for a while, weren't you? And how did you get to this point?
Yeah, I was at EA doing Burnout Revenge on Xbox and PlayStation 2, I think it was, 100 years ago, or however long ago it feels like. So I have a background in like technology and games. Myself and my co-founder Seb, we also made a bunch of independent games together, kind of stupid independent games. I made the first dubstep rhythm game on iPhone, which won a little award, like that was about 10 years ago. And then we made an underwater papercraft shark game called Derek the Deathfin, which was on PlayStation 3. And then we made a driving game about driving on multiple tracks at the same time called Drive, Drive, Drive. So we kind of, always in the technology kind of creative gaming space, me and him, just doing stuff. And we've been able to like get funding for those games by making prototypes, by showing them to people, produce them, and then try to sell them, which I don't know if you know any other indie game developers, but it's hard, very hard to get noticed, especially these days. The quality of the people are outputting is massive, and the amount of games is huge. So it's very difficult, even if you've got a quality game, to sell it. Since making Drive, 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 I've started working for a voice agency in London called Rehab. Do a lot of Alexa skills, Google Assistant actions, Messenger bots, as well as other web stuff. And it's kind of showed me the power and importance of voice, especially, and how that's going to increase going forward. And I just want to kind of marry those two worlds, essentially, our creative games experience with my new voice and AI kind of experience. So to kind of join those worlds together, obviously there's screen plus voice plus screen devices like Echo Show, Spot, Google Home Hub, but they're kind of underwhelming to me in the experiences that they deliver. Okay, if I want a recipe card or something like that, then cool. But if I want to play a game, or I want to see like a 3D render, or I want to create something with emergent behaviors, there's not really an opportunity for me to do that currently. And that's where I see us kind of coming in, like bringing these two worlds together. It shouldn't really be separate. So that was a long speech, wasn't it?
No, it's good. It's good. It's an interesting perspective to come at it from, because it's, you know, if you look at your likes of game design and game production, I mean, I always thought that, and all the conversations we've had and all the experience we've had, is that voice is a fairly complex area to work in. But I'm 100% convinced that game design must be just as complex, if not more complex. Is there some similarities in terms of the complexity that goes into the creation of that stuff?
I would say, yeah, it's more complex. Obviously, if you've got like a branching narrative thing, that has quite a good parallel with, say, like a text adventure game or an adventure game with a branching narrative. So there are parallels in terms of interactive stories and some of the more like story-driven voice skills, like, you know, the one with the caravan on Alexa and stuff like that. Magic Door, or whatever it's called. But that kind of experience is kind of a adventure game-ish kind of structure anyway. But yeah, making games is extraordinarily complex, especially if you're doing like a new mode of gameplay that's not been done before, which we always try to do because we're stupid. If you're copying somebody's established genre, established gameplay, then that's fine. But as soon as you try and do something new, it's very difficult to define what feels right or juicy, or what rewards the player, what keeps your interest, what doesn't annoy you. So yeah, it's a complex area. I would say more complex than designing voice skills, but that is in itself complex. I guess there's tools like Dialogflow and Watson that abstract a lot of the complexity. If everyone had to write their own natural language understanding engine, then natural language processing engine, then voice would be very complex too. I guess the voice is kind of misunderstood at the moment, isn't it, in terms of how it's implemented. As any kind of new media, people will try and put their TV on their website, put their website into voice. It's kind of, people need to understand what the medium is good for, and that like short interaction for something that's a utility is great. Like, give me this, I'm off. That's great. That's not a high bounce rate, that's what I want from a voice skill in that instance, for example. So again, I rambled. I didn't really answer your question.
No, I think you did. But from what you said there, it seems as though there would be a lot of transferable skills from game design into designing and developing voice experiences in general. You were talking there about what rewards people and what keeps them kind of entertained and what keeps them engaged and over time, because there must be some similarities in that respect as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. There definitely are, and I guess it's no surprise that Amazon are doing in-app purchases and all that kind of stuff, and there's games that start to take advantage of that now. Yeah, there's definitely, in terms of designing the experience, a lot of parallels, I guess. And obviously there's a lot of games on Assistant and Alexa that are trying to marry the two worlds directly. So yeah, there's a lot of parallels there. It depends what you're creating, really, the complexity of what you're creating. And I guess as we see screens and voice kind of merge, where I can start, I'm already now, so I can start something on Google Home and then transfer it onto my phone, take it through throughout the day, swap screen to voice. That's already possible once Chromecast and TVs get better integrated, which I'm sure they will do in the future. People will be used to, talking to their assistant and then that appearing on the TV or playing a multimodal game across different rooms. There's lots of possibilities for play and in voice and screen, for sure.
And where did Anything World come from then? Where did the sort of seed, when was it sowed, and how did it kind of come about?
Yeah, I guess from working at Rehab, we do a lot of work here for clients like Nike, Estee Lauder, doing like voice skills, messaging skills, just seeing how that is kind of abstracted from the visual layer. Obviously, somebody like Nike has a range of amazing like shoes and 3D assets, and they're not really being utilized within the same experience because everything's kind of so segregated. And then seeing Echo Show, Echo Spot, Home Hub, all the big players trying to integrate screens, and then seeing the markup for that, which is kind of, list, carousel, image-based, a little bit of HTML style markup. It's kind of limiting. To me, it's not like, what we're trying to create is like a magical kind of experience, like a request any 3D object you want, it will appear, and then you can talk to it. Is an example app we've got an app on iOS and Android called Speak to Anything, and it's just an AR app which integrates Watson and a bunch of other services in Google Poly, and you can just point it at the floor or your desk and then ask for any creature you like. Say ask for an aardvark, it will appear, and then you can ask it, what do you like to eat, and it will say crisps, etc. So it's just kind of a little demonstration of what you could do with our technology. It's kind of those magic moments with voice that we're trying to encourage.
And so are you building your own games, or are you building tools for other companies to use?
Yeah, so primarily the second one, but also to get the word out the first one. So we're building out a platform for other companies to use. That's going to be a subscription model currently. That's how we're currently thinking of it. So you pay a couple of pounds a month and you'll have Unity, Unreal, Web API, that kind of thing. But we're also building out showcase applications as well to show what they can use with it. And we're looking for partners to do that too. Perhaps we'll be doing something with Ubisoft along those lines. That would be a dream for us to do something with them using our technology. So that might be a byproduct of our startup program. But yeah, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing at the moment. We need the platform to make the experiences, and we need the experiences to get word out about the platform. So we're kind of trying to do both. But we need more people, really. More people and money. So if anyone's got either of those, send them on, please.
And you mentioned Ubisoft there. Or is it Ubisoft or Ubisoft?
I think it's Ubisoft, but I might be wrong there. Okay,
so do you want to tell us so that's a startup accelerator in Paris? You've just been accepted, announced last week.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's just been announced just last week that we've been accepted onto the Ubisoft startup program at Station F in the artificial intelligence track, which is amazing news for us. So we've got an office in Paris in Station F, which is an old station. I think it's the biggest. They call it the biggest startup hub in Europe. It's literally massive. It's like 3 hangars. I know that's not train terminology, but 3 massive buildings full of startups with Google, Amazon, everybody's there. And it's a super exciting place to work, and they've got a nice cafe as well, which helps. We've got office space there, and we're talking to the machine learning specialists at Ubisoft, their finance department, their investment advice, legal advice. So they're giving us a framework of support and connecting us with other startups. We've already been in touch with people from Sketchfab, through their connections. So it's really great for us, and like the first big break for us as a startup, getting onto that program. So hopefully that will open a lot of doors for us and maybe lead to a direct collaboration with Ubisoft and all their amazing assets and our technology. That would be the dream. There's already plenty of game ideas flying around of what you could do.
Yeah, fantastic. Dustin, is that around your neck of the woods?
It's also in Paris. I've never been. So Gordon, you're going to have to invite me over and show me around.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, it's I'm not really a Paris expert. It's near, I can say Place d'Italie. It's near there.
So Gordon, anything, it's a high promise. I can play with anything.
Yeah.
How are you bringing, to phrase it a different way, how are you bringing everything to voice? How does that come about?
So obviously we're dependent on the content of the 3D libraries we pull upon. Google Poly has got I think over 100,000 free models. Sketchfab has over 150,000. We're dependent on the quality of those that we pull in. We're also planning on adding our own libraries into our system. So yeah, it's not quite anything in the world or everything in the world. It's anything we can find in the libraries we have available. But we can rationalize in terms of like doing like a knowledge graph thing. If you ask for like a chimpanzee and we don't have one, we can give you monkey something of like a higher class, if you see what I mean, within the same logic structure. So we can do that. But the intelligent part of what we're trying to do is add behaviors to static 3D models. So if you ask for a monkey, it will appear and we will find the points on its 3D mesh to animate, and then it will run around and behave like a monkey. So we're adding behaviors and animations within our platform.
I think you made a good choice. Anything we can find that's available in the libraries world it doesn't quite roll quite as well.
Exactly, yeah. And there's other ones like Quixel, Megascans, who have like photogrammetry, I can't say it, but more realistic looking models. And there's more and more coming online all the time. So if you ask for something mega specific, a small piece of pipe with a gerbil sticking out, we could probably do that actually. Combining objects is another thing that we can do, but that is quite fun in terms of gaming mechanics. If you want, a dog riding an elephant, that's something that we can do. But that's what we want, right? That's what everyone always wants. Dog riding elephants. But yeah, obviously it's not everything in the world, but the possibilities are pretty high. It's getting our platform to add the layer of intelligence and behaviors come in, right?
And so that's interesting. You have hundreds of thousands of different items that people can select from, and with the combinations you just mentioned, that explodes it even more. Fundamentally, this seems like a search problem. How do you connect what people are looking for to what you have available? And you also mentioned fallbacks as well. How do you make that work?
I guess that's two different issues, because we're dealing mainly with gaming or more fun applications. We anticipate people are not going to be that annoyed if they get a monkey rather than a specific variety of monkey that they've requested. There are solutions to that available, like Google has a knowledge graph that you can query for similar objects, and we can obviously subset stuff. So if people get specific, we can give them a category up is one way of solving that. The specific request issue. But yeah, it's not really going to be a search issue. There'll be things which will not be available. It's more like an imagination thing, I guess. If you're imagining like a battle game and somebody requests a type of plane that's not been seen before, or a UFO that nobody's ever tried, we're hoping that will allow emergent modes of gameplay that people have not thought of. There'll be a lot of discoveries that come in all the time, just because certain things have never been requested, certain behaviors have never been seen, certain combinations have never been seen. Obviously, it's not limitless. There was a limit currently of 250,000 objects. Obviously, there'll be within that a few hundred dogs. It's not everything, but we expect that to only increase as people submit more and more models to things like Sketchfab, and we get more and more partners on board. If Ubisoft come on board with their libraries of a library of their models, then great. We may, for a specific implementation, work with some friends of ours in Sheffield, 1024, who are great modelers and have done models for a couple of our games before, just to put up a big bank of super low poly models ready to be animated. So, it's not really a search problem, but there will be queries that can't be fulfilled. But we're hopeful that people will be kind of understanding about that, given its playful context.
And is it then, so from what you were describing there, if someone's playing, I think the example you gave was someone's playing a battle game and they request a UFO, and they can almost change what's happening in real time. So is the concept of this, is this just to bring in that UFO, or is the concept of this to bring in that UFO and then control it and have it do stuff with your voice as well?
Exactly, the second one, yeah. So a lot of these will need to be custom defined. We're planning on having a web portal so people can define custom actions or responses based on their game or implementation. But yeah, the idea is not just to request and it dumps on the floor. If it's a UFO, fly around and perhaps start firing lasers at the enemy forces if it's a battle game, as an example. So yeah, a lot of this comes from intelligently adding those behaviors and allowing creators to customize those behaviors based on their particular setup.
So the example in the app that you have is it's good. It's, you know, you can play with it and you can make things happen. You can ask for a dinosaur on a building or whatever. And I think that's in the example video. As a standalone thing, it's got like the novelty kind of appeal. How do you see it, and do you see it changing? Because I don't know enough about gaming necessarily, because I haven't played a game since I used to play FIFA quite a lot when I was in uni, and I was spending far too much time on it, so I kind of like just banished myself from the Xbox. So would you see this changing gaming? Because at the moment gaming is very much kind of like control pad, you know, and maybe there's a headset to communicate to people who you're playing with online or whatever, but it's predominantly controlled by a control pad or something, isn't it? Is this something that will fit into that current gameplay model, or is this something that will bring about a new way of interacting and playing games?
Well, we're hopeful for the second one. It's kind of a lofty ambition. There was a game a few years ago called Scribblenauts, which was on the DS, which you could type in whatever you wanted and it would fulfill that request. It was kind of a puzzle, like a sandbox 2D puzzle game kind of thing. It was pretty popular, and we're kind of like the modern version of that with voice, and you can say whatever you like, and open 3D libraries and layers of intelligence added on. So yeah, we're kind of hopeful it does like evolve or create new emergent worlds of play. But yeah, it can fit into current gaming too. I guess the reason that companies like Ubisoft are interested in what we're doing is to be on like the cutting edge of what's coming next. A lot of games companies, and not specifically Ubisoft, they're lovely, obviously, I would say that. But you know, a lot of games companies are quite old-fashioned in terms of their production pipelines. Machine learning and like generative animations is a big part of how computer games companies are working and need to work more in the future. Production of assets is time-consuming as well. So like these kinds of solutions, I think, will help to like revolutionize the way that games are made and the way that games are played. And also people have different expectations now. It's not just you get a game and it's done. You know, you expect it to evolve. You expect patches. You expect it to be a service. You expect multiplayer. So like these kind of like evolving, emergent experiences, I think, does fit into kind of a new way of games. And it doesn't have to be perfect as well. It will be a bit rough around the edges necessarily because you don't quite know what you're requesting. So yeah, kind of both, I think. But the specific aspect of gaming I think it fits in right now is VR and like mixed reality stuff. So the Magic Leap headset and rumored headsets from Google and Facebook and Apple. I don't know how much is true there, but as these things become more prevalent, voice is a very natural way to interact. When you're in VR, when you've got a mixed reality headset on, it's a very natural way to control the content around you and to manipulate things. So we imagine that being a big area of interest, and we've had a lot of interest from AR content creators like Preloaded and Nexus. We do things for the BBC, bringing museum pieces into your living room. They're very interested in, you know, adapting that kind of content with voice controls and like open libraries too. So I guess it should be more prevalent within traditional games, but anything to do with mixed reality, AR, VR is quite a big use case for now, I think.
Does this require a certain type of console to actually, I mean, is this something that you will see, for example, let's say that everything goes swimmingly over the next kind of like year or so, is this something that you could see in an Xbox game, or is this something that you would need a VR headset or a specific piece of hardware for? No,
I mean, the VR headset is just an example where I think it's quite relevant today. You just need a microphone, essentially, and that's it, and access to the service to get input. Get microphone input, that's all we need, microphone input and a display. So yeah, anywhere where that's prevalent, like, you know, laptops, phones. It's just that mixed reality headsets and VR headsets seems quite a natural fit because of the difficulties of interface control in those environments and the immersion within the world that you're in. So kind of doubles the wow effect, I guess.
what about what happens? So you say that all you need is a microphone, and maybe this kind of touches on some of the questions that Dustin was asking just there around how do you go about categorizing all this stuff. But before you can categorize and interrogate whatever it is that you want to draw upon, there must be something in the middle here. So you've got the microphone down here on the device. You've got all of that data and those 3D libraries you were talking about over here, presumably in a cloud somewhere. What happens in the middle? I wasn't asking you to kind of spill your secrets, but like a broad overview of how this kind of thing works and what's going on.
Yeah, so there's no secret, so I can spill it for you. That's not. So we just go at the moment. We have Dialogflow and Watson integrated. So we'll send text ideally to Dialogflow and just get the intent, which we've reconfigured to match what you say. So if you say I want a big pink giraffe, we'll get the color pink and giraffe, and then we'll send that off to our 3D library, get a giraffe, and then color it pink and display it for you. So yeah, the bit that was missing from my description is natural language understanding services like Dialogflow and Watson. They're also integrated in our platform.
Okay.
So just like you, just like an assistant.
Yeah. So what a large part of designing a voice experience and then creating that voice experience is around trying to understand what those intents actually are. 'Cause it's all kind of well for us to say, well, I want, a train ticket booking intent, or I want a weather intent, or what have you. And so coming up with what those intents are and all of the different types of ways that those intents can be phrased and all that kind of stuff, that's kind of like where half of the battle is, isn't it? It's trying to think of all those different kind of things. Where do you even start when you can just ask for anything and have that anything do anything?
Well, I guess we have pre-configured actions based on what you've asked for. So if you ask for a dog, then we know that dog is a certain category and it has certain behaviors that apply to it. So there'll be things that you can't do. For example, to give you a bad example, ask for a dog and make it drive around. That's not going to work. So we know from the intent of what you've asked for, if it's a dog, we know what categories of behaviors, default behaviors apply to that, and then we can match those. So we're kind of segmenting it up, segmenting the intent into little bits. Once we know the object you're requesting, then we can get the default behaviors we've set up for that object. Obviously, not all of this is solved problems right now because we're still building the platform. We're super young. We're only 7 months old. But we do have the Dialogflow and Watson integration with Poly and Sketchfab, so you can request models and have them appear in your environment. But yeah, there are obviously edge cases that we can't catch, and that's the nature of promising anything in the world. We've made ourselves a problem there. But yeah, luckily, because we know what you're asking for in this specific instance, we can narrow it down in that way.
And then, what do you do about those errors? Not errors necessarily, but if it's something that you can't fulfill, if you want a dog driving around in a big bright yellow taxi, what do you do with that when someone asks for that?
Well, we can use that to make our system more intelligent. We can use that to train it. A dog driving around in a yellow taxi should be possible. It's not possible today, but it should be possible, like combining. I'm not saying the dog will fit in perfectly, it might fall out, but that'll be part of the comedy, I think, of the experience. You can certainly get a car and put a dog on top of it. Whether it will stay there is a different issue. But yeah, those are challenges. But like our biggest challenge, to be honest, is not really in the natural language understanding. It's more in the understanding of the model and its structure that we get back from these services. So like adding wheels to a car, identifying the like spherical colliders to make sure that's where the wheel should be, or finding knees in a human to make sure it's animated properly is more of a technical challenge than understanding the intent of what someone's saying. Obviously, there's always going to be bits that are outside the range of what we can understand. And yeah, like I guess from most voice experiences, it's like do one thing and do one thing well, because you can't have a voice service that answers every random query about everything in the world. That's impossible. But I guess that's kind of the impetus of your query. How can we promise everything in the world? In reality, we're not. We're providing people with a service that they can request for an object with a behavior, or they can apply a predefined action to an object. So it's not quite as open as it might seem.
And then let's say that, because you were talking about this being not just a kind of like a game at the moment that you can interact with, but also something that the game developers can then use themselves to incorporate this kind of functionality into their games. And I think you kind of touched on it earlier on that they would have to so they would have to come up with their own intents and their own behavior that they want to apply to each object.
No, there'll be a set of default intents, default behaviors. So let's say you're using this in Unity and you get a key, and then you just add that key to every request. So you could say, yeah, get me a dog, get me a big dog, get me a dog that runs around, and that would all be fine. That would be default behaviors. If you wanted to go beyond that and do something specific to a game, let's say you wanted to throw the dog in your game, as an example, or make the dog a boomerang, you'd have to set up those motion values within our web platform. So we have a set of default behaviors and also default conversations for objects. If you wanted to go beyond that, you'd have to define that yourself, because obviously we can't catch more than defaults for every bespoke experience. If it's like a banana racer where you're racing bananas, I don't know, you're going to use bananas for racing. Nobody could possibly know that. I've just made that up. So that would have to be custom configured.
Yeah. One of the other custom configurations that I would need to do would be that dog you mentioned would need to have a urine infection, which is what my dog's managed to pick up over the last 2 days. So that's what I'm dealing with. So what kind of other either design or technical sort of challenges have you come across from a voice perspective in doing this?
I guess it's kind of in the nature of what we're doing, promising a lot. People do get frustrated in voice. It's something I've seen at Rehab as well, is that if you don't fulfill the request that they expect, then they start to get quite annoyed. So like, oh, come on, you stupid thing. And start, frustration is always only ever a step away. I guess it's because of the emergent nature of the medium getting better. I think it's already amazing, but once people have something, they become entitled to it. It's like, Wi-Fi on a flight. That disgraced comedian had a big example about, as soon as people have Wi-Fi on a flight, they're like complaining, the Wi-Fi's down, the Wi-Fi's down. As soon as people have something, they become so entitled and expected to behave in certain ways. And also just the way that it does behave nicely, like Google Assistant, for example, matches queries so nicely that if it doesn't, people start to get very angry. So we have a little bit of a head start, a little bit of a goodwill because of the nature of the things that we're making. So games, so they're more playful. But yeah, people can get quite frustrated quite quickly in voice, and that's often compounded by people not doing the basics of like having a fallback intent, letting people go back easily, letting people repeat things. It's badly designed experiences, and the emergent nature of the medium, I think, makes people frustrated sometimes.
And how are you guys handling that? You mentioned there's the possibility of frustration. What specifically are you building in to counterbalance that?
Well, obviously we have do standard things like have a range of fallback responses. If we can't match, if we can tell you're trying to get an object and we can't match it, we'll just say try something else, or we can suggest something else. If they say they want a gorilla and there is no gorilla, there is a gorilla. Let's say they want a speckled gorilla and there's not a speckled gorilla, we might would you like to try gorilla? So we can suggest things that we know we have, and we can respond to them in kind of friendly, jovial ways and guide them. And I guess that's the way we're trying to handle it. Do all the basics well, not frustrate them, and suggest related things if they're asking for something that we don't have.
There was a really good. It was a voice. Oh no, what was it? It was Dashbot actually. Dashbot. I don't know whether you have seen it. They published a blog post talking about people getting frustrated. They published a post that looked at sentiment analysis of all of their conversational. Obviously, everyone uses Dashbot, their analytics platform. They use it within their skills and actions and stuff to understand what's working and what's not and all that kind of stuff. They then kind of took all that data, rolled it all up, and they published this blog post that was saying what some of the most common positive phrases are and what some of the most common negative phrases are. And apparently, on Google Assistant, in the top 10 negative phrases is F off.
I can imagine.
But I can imagine that the concept of becoming frustrated with something it's high enough when you've got something on a Google Home or an Echo or something like that. But now you put it into a gaming environment, and not only do you need to give someone exactly what they've asked for, but you also need to do it quickly in real time and within the game. So how do you deal with it? Because voice tends to be, typically, it's actually a slow medium in terms of the response that you would get from voice. So how do you deal with it when you need it to be so quick?
So this system is not suitable for real-time games, not for driving games, not for real-time. So like turn-based things, like in the fighting game example, a turn-based game, it will be suitable for right now. Puzzle games, strategy games, things like that are well suited for what it is right now. It would be great to do something like a rally game where it's like turn left, turn hard right. But there's a certain delay in processing the intent of what you're saying and also requesting models and behaviors too. It's not big, it's what people expect, it's like a second or so. It's expected from talking to Alexa that you'll get a little blue ring and it will take a little while to get your response. But yeah, our system is not suited for, fast-paced real-time games, at least not just yet. It could be adapted for it, but then if you had a bank of assets within that game and you're doing basically keyword response, or you knew what you were going to match, but then it kind of undermines the concept of what it is. So yeah, maybe one day when we all have 10G or whatever, maybe one day will be. But right now, it's not suitable for fast-paced real-time gaming.
And now is the latency more on the NLU side or on the rendering side once you get those results?
It's kind of 50-50. Obviously, it depends on the model you request. If it's like a low poly thing from Google Poly, then that's super quick. That can be often quicker than matching the NLU stuff. It's also dependent. We're working on a web API right now. So in Chrome, that works really nicely with the web speech API. It just goes speech to text, send the text off. But for other browsers, we have to send the audio off. So that obviously slows things down. So it's kind of dependent on platform. But it's pretty quick. I mean, it's quick or quicker than you would expect a response from Assistant or Alexa.
So is this then, I'm assuming based on that conversation just there, this is everything that you do essentially is in the cloud, or do you do anything on the device itself?
Well, yeah. So we would do speech to text on the device itself, ideally, and then just send text off to our platform. We can also send audio, as I mentioned, off to the platform if necessary. So yeah, we'll just send the text of what you said, and then we'll match that to whatever intents, get whatever models, and then add behaviors to them and return them to your 3D world. So yeah, everything is cloud-based. That's why it's kind of service-based. That's why it's sort of hand in hand. If we develop a really cool game with this, we'll be developing the platform alongside it as well, because the two need each other, if you see what I mean.
That's quite interesting that you're doing the speech to text locally. It's I think pretty uncommon. What are you using to do that, or is it dependent on each implementation?
Yeah, it's dependent on each implementation. So we've got iOS and Android apps. So we're using the Siri stuff on iOS and the Android stuff, which name I forget, on Android to do that. It's just for speed, really. We also had a version with Watson that did speech to text via their services, but that was pretty slow. I'm not one to diss Watson because we use it for a lot of other stuff. But yeah, just in the nature, I think, of just sending, depending how large the file is. Wherever possible, we'll do it locally. But yeah, the platform's evolving. It's dependent on the medium you're on, so there's no real one fast rule. Like I say, if you're not in Chrome and you're using our web version, then we're sending the audio to our service too. So.
And is there anything that is uniquely different between, because you've had a lot of experience in designing and creating, developing voice experiences at Rehab. That's that's where the name Rehab comes into a bit of sensitivity, doesn't it? In a recovery program developing voice experiences.
Yeah.
But so.
One of those names. I didn't name the company.
It's actually a pretty good name, because it could be where you go to be cured of all of your problems and come out at the other end with a solution that's fit for purpose. So I can see where it comes from. But yeah, so you've had a lot of experience in design and developing the voice experiences there. What else? I mean, we spoke about storyline and narrative and things like that in terms of what things are similar. But what else do you think is either similar or dissimilar for those people listening who've got experience designing for smart speakers or voice assistants? Where are some of the other similarities or differences between doing this in a live gaming environment?
I guess the disciplines are kind of coming together, aren't they? Like even if you're purely voice right now, you're voice and screen because you have to allow for it, and as things develop, I imagine we'll get more fuller HTML views within these devices, so you can just embed a full HTML view within your Home Hub or your Echo or Screen device, And I imagine TVs will become more integrated, so you can just cast as you can and select bits in America. This is weather in America, isn't it now, from a system? I imagine basically all these displays will get more integrated, so voice plus screen will become more prevalent. So if you're a voice designer, you're also designing for a display. And if that display is just an HTML embed, then it could be a 3D asset, it could be anything. So I think everything's kind of converging, which is as it should be, I think. Like originally, everything went kind of like voice is the future, forget about screens. But then as we saw quite quickly after that, it's like, oh, here's the screen in case you need to go through some recipes, because you don't want to go through a carousel with voice, because that's incredibly tedious. So everything is converging, I think, and all disciplines are converging. So I think the understanding of voice is the bit that needs to develop. Understanding like visual mediums is fairly well established, I guess. Things we've been seeing for hundreds of thousands of years. People have had eyes. So I'm just talking nonsense now. But yeah, I didn't answer your question, but I did give you a rambling answer again. So.
No, that's cool. No, it makes sense. I think that things are converging. That's kind of one of the things that I think it might have been Sean Kanungo a few months back was talking about. That's one of the things that actually gives voice its power, is that maybe it's not solely voice on its own, but it's voice in connection and collaboration with other things. It could be location information, could be previous user behavior, could be visual stuff, all combined together, all create something that's better than the sum of its parts, so to speak.
Well, that's precisely, yeah, agreed. And like, if you can hook it, I've been thinking about games like games with like smart devices, where you're playing a voice game and it turns down the light in the kitchen if it's a scary game, or it turns on a speaker in a different room. There's all these things you can play with once you connect it up. There's like people now trying to extend it beyond voice. Obviously, there's the read along with Disney thing that's only in the States, unfortunately, which I found out after I bought 2 Mickey Mouse books for my 5-year-old, where you're reading along. System provides the sound effects as you're reading to your children. That's lovely, because that's, as you say, like reaching the physical and the voice world and providing an accompaniment. Yeah. So the more this stuff mixes and converges, the more exciting it gets, and the more the magic's there. Like with our platform, you ask for something and then it appears in your 3D world and you can talk to it, or it has behaviors applied. That's kind of magical, and that's the combination of worlds that make this stuff more interesting, I think, rather than being just purely a voice thing.
And is that where you see things heading then, thinking about as things progress over the next kind of year, 2-3 years? Is that the trend that you think will happen? Is everything will converge like that, or do you see anything else on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a broad question, but yeah, I think definitely convergence of that is going to be quite prominent. I think we'll see more exciting displays. We'll see more content, more rich content on voice plus screen devices. We'll see voice obviously come into everything. It's in toilets and microwaves. Where else can it go? It'll be in everything, right? And everything will be more tightly integrated. I guess machine learning is the thing that's powering a lot of revolutions behind the scenes in voice and in computer vision and everything. So that, I guess, all that stuff will integrate, and we'll get some amazing applications come out for sure. So yeah, and also then I think the mixed reality headsets coming out. If Google or Apple or Facebook bring out an amazing one that's comfortable to wear and it's not hideous, that hits the mainstream, that can help redefine a lot of stuff. And then the natural interface for a system like that is definitely going to be voice. So yeah, I can only see more and more excitement and convergence, really.
And do you see,
which is what you'd expect me to say, right? It's a voice podcast.
Well, yeah, but sometimes it's nice to have a challenge if that's not the way things are. But
yeah, that's not me. I'm not a challenger. I'm only an enthusiast. I'm not a challenger.
So do you see then, in terms of the gaming space and the gaming world, do you see voice becoming a prevalent and front and center part of the gaming experience, or do you see it being just part of it?
Well, I think both. It'll be a natural way to interface in certain environments if there's mixed reality or VR. It'll be a way that people, obviously, right now, it's a way people expect to chat to their friends in multiplayer, expect to connect with other players. So it'll be an expected way of using part of games, and it also, I think, it will be an expected way of controlling games and requesting things in games. So services like ours, I think, will change the nature of gameplay, as well as voice being an expected way of being able to do certain basic things across games and apps. So kind of both.
So that kind of makes sense, because people are in the kind of online sort of gaming world, people have got headsets on and they're used to speaking and conversing anyway, so it kind of feels natural to then bring the game into that conversation, doesn't it?
Exactly, yeah. It's how people are increasingly interacting within games and with the services they've got outside of games. So yeah, obviously voice has always been a natural way to communicate. Why not hook it up to available 3D libraries, add behaviors, and bring a bit of fun into play? I think like the joy of like using voice and screens and 3D objects is what we're trying to bring out a little bit of fun back into what can often be like a utility-based space.
Yeah. Wicked. So where can people go then to actually see this in action and try it out?
Right, yes. If you go to anything.world, it's a .world domain, you will see a video about our service and you get links to the iOS and Android app. And that's it. And they're free to download, so feel free to download either, both of them. Don't be shy about giving a 5-star review and like a glowing diatribe about how wonderful it is. That's all fine. That's all allowed.
Fantastic. And how can people kind of keep on top of what you're doing and follow you through the accelerator over the next few months? And how can people kind of reach out to you if they see fit?
Yeah, if you go to anything.world, you'll find, you will find when I put it up there, you'll find our email address, you'll find our Twitter, Insta, Facebook, so you can follow on all of those lovely social platforms. We've got a little news section on there. So yeah, that's the place to go to link off to all our social stuff and check out our apps if you want to.
Cool. A .world domain name as well. Very in right now, that.
Is it?
VUX. VUX World is up there as well. We're early adopters of the .world. Yeah. Fantastic. Gordon, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for bringing such a unique perspective to this whole industry. It's been really refreshing to hear about the stuff that you're doing, and all the best for the accelerator. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Well, thanks so much for listening to me and chatting to me. It's been brilliant.
That was Gordon Midwood of Anything World. Seriously, do check out Anything World. It is a fantastic example of how you can take voice and merge that with other modalities and technologies to create something that is engaging and consuming and entertaining. It really, really is. And I love Gordon's kind of whole concept of using voice for something more immersive, rather than the standard request response and kind of flat interactions that we can sometimes have. Don't get me wrong, they have a purpose. If you want to know what's in your calendar tomorrow, then you just want to know what's in your calendar tomorrow. Voice has huge benefits from a utility perspective. But to use it to create something that is more immersive, it's a little bit along the lines of what we were speaking about with the Hidden Cities Berlin podcast we did last week. Using voice to create an immersive experience and to be able to bring about things in front of you visually with your voice, and then to have those things animate and do things and kind of put behaviours onto them. It's novel, but it's also something that I can see a whole entire game being built around. I can really see how that will be something that is really exciting and it can catch on, because voice is the most natural interface that we have. And as Gordon was saying, as these VR headsets and all these other types of devices that enhanced gameplay come about, voice seems to be the natural default interface to use in these environments. So super excited to see where Anything World goes with the accelerator that it's involved in over the next few months. And do check it out, anything.world, and let them know what you think. It's I can see this having huge application. You could create games with this on its own, as Anything World are doing, but also for developers of games to use this technology to then enhance their games and the capability in their games could be an absolutely huge opportunity. So thank you, Gordon, for joining us. That was an immense chat. Thank you, Dustin, as well. And thank you all for listening. Until next time, see you later.